It's FlamesNation Radio. It's September, and we have hockey to talk about. I'm Ryan, joined by Shane as always, and special guest this week because he wanted to join us. Mike Gould from everywhere you read about hockey, it seems, is with us this week. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
As always, we're delivered to you by DoorDash and by the lovely people at Eau Claire Distillery, the makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. Recording this on Wednesday. Today was two things. One, the Flames golf tournament, where they raised money for charity, and Brad Treliving hopefully took a bit of a victory lap, seeing some guys that he acquired in a frenzy arrive in town and put names to faces and whatnot. The other thing was fitness testing for the rookie part of training camp. We'll get into this momentarily, but the big news of the week is hockey starts. The Penticton tournament begins on Friday. The Flames play an 8:30 game against Vancouver. I think it's Vancouver. And then they play Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time, I believe, against Edmonton. And then they play Winnipeg on Monday at noon. All three games are streamed on the Flames website. I believe it's probably geo-locked. Don't quote me on this, but more often than not, the things on the Flames website are for rights reasons geo-locked to Alberta. So if it doesn't work for you, I apologize. Hopefully you can find a way to make it work that is legalish. Three pieces of news beyond that. I say three and hold up 9 fingers. Pieces of news this week. There have been a couple signings and a hiring that's kind of interesting. The two signings, and they're not really signings, they're PTOs, but one will almost definitely lead to a signing because one person is an inevitability in the Flames organization. One, Michael Stone got signed to a PTO. Michael Stone, gentlemen, find someone in your life that loves you the way Brad Treliving loves signing Michael Stone to contracts. The Flames general manager traded for Michael Stone in, I believe, his first trade deadline. I think it was 2014 or 2015. It was 2015. Yeah, it was his first trade deadline as GM. And then he signed Michael Stone to a 3-year contract extension. 2 years into that contract extension, for cap reasons, he had to buy him out. Michael Stone was being paid like a, regular third pairing, second pairing guy, and the Flames didn't have the allocation to really keep that going. So they bought him out. And then a week or two later, Yusuf Alamaki's knee exploded, and all of a sudden, it's Michael Stone season again. And Michael Stone's been signed to 3 consecutive 1-year contracts, playing on the third pair and or as the 7th defenseman. And he's been pretty good. He was pretty good last season. He came in at short notice in the playoffs when Chris Tanev got hurt. He's a plug and play guy. He's a veteran. I think that the nice thing for Michael Stone is 2 things. One, he's perfectly fine. He's got a good shot, and he's fine at pretty much everything. He's not great at anything, but he's good enough. And the other thing is he's self-aware. I think he knows what he's good and not so good at. And so he just doesn't put himself in situations to look bad. He's just a really smart, low-risk player. I would argue high floor, low ceiling player, but he's fine. And he'll probably deserves to get more than league minimum based on how well he played last season. NHL economics being what they are, and his personal circumstances. I'm sure he lives in Calgary. His family's in Calgary. He's got a young family. He's got kids. And for him, being in the local community seems to be a priority to the point where he's probably going to leave money on the table. But I mean, what do you guys? I think he's fine.
That I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. Brad came from Arizona, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
who else came from Arizona? So that relationship.
Derek McKinnon.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong.
Who else? Ray Edwards. Robert Newhouser. Don Maloney.
Yeah, Don came too. But Michael Stone and Brad go back way before their Flames times, either because he was the AGM down there, I believe, and he had Stone there too. So they've been connected for a long time. Stone, I like Stone because if he doesn't hurt anything by putting him in the press box. He is what he is. If he needs to sit for 5 games, 6 games, he will. He's fine with it. He's a team player. He shows up, plays hard when he gets put in, and does what's needed. So there's a lot of D things to sort out that we'll talk another time. I'm just glad Stone's still here and getting a shot. So
Yeah, Michael Stone is one of the last remnants of the tree-living Maloney era in Phoenix, who is still in the league. You saw it a bit a few years ago with Lori Korpikoski coming in on a PTO. Toby Reeder came in on a PTO, turned that into a contract. So yeah, no, it definitely used to be more of a theme. There are definitely more guys who used to play for the Coyotes who came in on PTOs. Yeah, no, I have no issues with it. I think it's probably a precursor to another move. I think Yusuf Alamaki probably gets moved on at some point.
you can't get away.
I think
Has to
yeah.
get waived, right? So
has to get waived, and I don't think he's one of their top 8 defenders, either in terms of his on ice value or
based on their cap situation. I can't see them carrying 8 defenders.
well, either way, yeah. I don't even think he's one of their top 7. I mean, I think from the
we'll see. Well,
yeah, because
if we were having this conversation
training camp tells
a year ago about Oliver Shillington,
yeah.
So we'll
yeah.
see. I'm willing to be surprised by training camp, but I'm never surprised by Michael Stone, and I mean that as a compliment. He's a metronome. He's reliable. He's inexpensive. He's predictable in all the best ways. Would you want him playing over some of your kids? No. Do they have any kids who he'll be playing over? Again, probably no. So the other move the Flames made was they signed Cody Eakin, formerly of many teams, including Vegas, Winnipeg, and Buffalo most recently. They signed him to a PTO. Eakin's a body. He's fine. He looks like he might, if they sign him, he'll be on the 4th line, maybe, or is the 13th, 14th forward. I mean, is he an upgrade on Kevin Rooney? I don't know. I think the problem I have with really poo-pooing Eakin too much is that he was playing in Buffalo, and Buffalo was horrible last year. So he was a average player relative to his team on a horrendous hockey team. So what is he when you put him with good players? His experience several years ago in Vegas suggests he'd be fine, but also it's been several years since he's been playing on a good team with good players, his Winnipeg experience notwithstanding. So I don't know what he is, but I mean, they didn't give anything up to get him. He's, going to play in the preseason and probably be one of their veterans. And he feels like a guy that either signs on October 8th and is your 13th, 14th forward, or is released on October 8th or 9th and you don't really think about it anymore. Either way, I mean, he is a body, and maybe he's more than that. I don't know.
It's a bar to set though. Like, hey, like we're going to bring Eakin in on a PTO. Hey kids, if you want to make the team, you have to be at least better than this. Like you, if you want to make the team, you want to be on the roster, you have to be better than this. You have to bring the everyday intangibles that an old pro like Cody Eakin's going to bring in order, like in terms of getting the pucks out and being like back checking and always.
If we're going to be mean about this, he's a replacement-ish level NHL player. And
that's what he is now.
You want to say to Pelche or Ruzicka or whoever, hey kids, if you want to be an NHLer, you have to prove you're better than a replacement level guy. I mean, I guess.
Not rude. I mean, it's like Cody Eakin's better at hockey than all 3 of us probably combined. So I'm not really really rad.
There's no probably about it.
The worst player in the NHL is better.
I'll say this. This is the thing. My dad was my hockey coach growing up, and to be very generous about my hockey skills, the phrasing he used at dinner a few weeks ago was, "Ryan, you made the NHL in the only way you probably were going to."
I mean, harsh dad, but I mean, at least he's being truthful with you. But Cody Eakin, I don't think they sign him. I don't think it turns into a contract, but if it does, it's because kids aren't ready yet. You gotta have bodies, and they gotta be there. And we know the coach likes reliable veterans. They don't make rookie mistakes. So.
Yeah, my only quibble with Eakin, I would have just preferred somebody else. I don't have any issues with PTOs in general. I think the way that the Flames handle them is, generally speaking, fine. Yeah, I mean, I think Cody Eakin is probably better than what he's shown in Buffalo. I think there are players who were available who were also on bad teams who were better on those bad teams who they could have looked at, but at the same time, it's really just. It's just squibbling over loose ends. Like, it's just such a minor thing, so that I don't really have many regrets or concerns about it.
For all the stats fans that listen, if you look at their Rap'em charts, it's like Trevor Lewis. But when you add
yeah.
a Buffalo factor and take the Buffalo factor out and even average them, it's the same. They're right there. They already have their Trevor Lewis.
And
Trevor Lewis is there. So.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought Trevor Lewis, for what Trevor Lewis is asked to do when he was on like the fourth line of the PK, he was fine. He was, Trevor Lewis was exactly what the Flames needed Trevor Lewis to be. I don't think you need two, but I'm also not the person signing the checks or recruiting players. So, I mean, the other piece of news, a bit more exciting than Cody Eakin, the Flames signed Rebecca Johnston, Canadian hockey icon Rebecca Johnston, otherwise known as the other Johnny Hockey to Calgary hockey fans, to a role. She's going to be working with player development and player evaluation, working with prospects and with on-ice instruction for some of the younger players this year. She's also going to be working in community development a bit with the Flames Foundation. It's kind of a cool role. She's 32. She has 3 Olympic medals, 4 Olympic medals, 3 of them are gold, 9. She's been to, I think she's won 7 world championships, something like that. 2 world championships and 7 gold, silvers in world championships. So she's played an ungodly amount of high-end hockey. She also won a Clarkson Cup with the Calgary Inferno a few years ago, back when the Inferno were still a thing. We miss you, Calgary Inferno. Yeah, she's objectively great at hockey, and she is based in the Calgary area. And if you're the Flames and you suddenly have an AHL team that's going to be playing plenty of time in your home market and practicing, there's really no downside in bringing in someone that's that good at hockey and saying, "Hey, we'll give you some money, teach the kids what you can teach them, and then help us build hockey in the Calgary community." So, yeah, I think it's an easy, high five tap in win for both sides. It's going to be kind of cool and I think it continues a trend of a lot of really high end women's athletes coming in and, becoming more and more of a fixture in NHL clubs. Recently Jessica Campbell got hired by the Coachella Valley Firebirds as an assistant coach. I believe someone correct me if I have this wrong, because I'm probably going to get the details of this wrong. In terms of bench coaches in the NHL or AHL, she's basically the first bench coach at the highest level so far. And she probably has the inside track of getting an NHL gig before too long, because, successful AHL teams get all their best coaches poached. And I'll say this, hopefully there's more strong female athletes getting poached by NHL clubs, because we saw this, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, nobody had analytics departments, and everyone thought, man, isn't that stupid not to have analytics departments? That's really stupid. Yeah. And now the trend is, hey, we have an entire gender full of amazing high-end athletes with these, high-end, pressure-packed hockey experience, people who've won at the highest levels, people who've just been there, done that, and can teach your kids stuff. So why wouldn't you hire, more women into your front offices and into your hockey operations outfits? So, I mean, this seems like a win. I'm still kind of mad that the Leafs hired Haley Wickenheiser and the Flames didn't jump on that sooner, because she went to the UFC. She played a lot of her hockey in the Calgary area, but at least they're not letting Rebecca Johnston get away.
And she's not the only female coach they have as well. They have that conditioning coach.
Daniel Fujita is their skating coach, full-time skating coach. So yeah,
they did a great feature on her on Hockey Night in Canada in the playoffs, and it was fantastically well done. And even the players talk about how much she's brought to their game. So it's fantastic. It's about time, basically about time. When you limit half the hiring pool right off the hop, you're just stupid. So
exactly, that's the exact point that I was going to make. It's just
if you feel your organization is smart people, then good things tend to happen, right?
Yeah, it's just like stupid. So, anyways, fantastic.
So let's dive into the meat of this sandwich, gentlemen. It's Penticton time. It's been a while since we've had an actual tournament to talk about for September hockey. It's let me think. It's been a while, because was it 2018? The Flames went to China, so they didn't do it. 2019, they didn't do it because they did something with the Oilers. 2020 was a pandemic. 2021 was a pandemic, and they also did a thing with the Oilers because it was less pandemic-y, so they were able to do something. So this is like the first normal Penticton tournament the Flames have participated in since I think 2017.
Yep.
So it's been a minute since they've been doing this. This year's tournament features just the 4 teams for this year. It might expand in the coming years. It features Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and that team up in Winnipeg that doesn't have an airport.
You're gonna have.
Sorry,
to
we legally have to point out that the Winnipeg airport does exist. It's in our contracts now. So, gentlemen, before
start driving now.
We'll do a deep dive into the 27 individuals who'll be representing the Flames in this tournament. Briefly, let's touch on the other 3 teams. There's some interesting names. Let's start with the gentleman up north, the Edmonton Oilers. They have an interesting group going. They have 4 first-round picks. Their 4 most recent first-round picks: Reed Schaefer, Xavier Bourgault, Dylan Holloway, and Philip Broberg. Philip Broberg is their 2019 pick. If you think to yourself, isn't he in NHL already? He has played NHL games. He's probably one of the more veteran guys you'll see at an event like this. But as we'll get into with some of the Flames players, I think the thought process is guys like Phil Broberg, they think can make a push for the NHL gigs and regular NHL minutes. They want to start camp early and put them in a situation where they can potentially exert their will. And a man-sized kid like Broberg can probably, I'm sure the Oilers are hoping he will. This seems like a situation where Broberg can come in and really put his mark on the games he's in. I don't know if he'll do that, but I can understand the thought process behind it. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think with Phil Broberg, he's there as sort of a marquee player they can send, sort of in the same vein as Jacob Pelletier, who's going for Calgary, and obviously they're the same year. Broberg, interesting player. I think he'll be probably one of the better defenders in the entire tournament. Calgary doesn't have anybody at his pedigree. Vancouver certainly doesn't, and Winnipeg probably doesn't either. And so he'll probably have an opportunity to, assert his will, as you said. And we saw it at some of I was at the Hlinka tournament this past summer, and you saw on some of the teams, there was one defenseman in particular for Team Finland. I'm just trying to remember his name. But he was by far and away, I thought, Aaron Kiviharju. He was the best defenseman at the tournament, and he could just impose his will because he was just so much better than everybody else. And so I think that's going to be big for Edmonton. They're kind of a funny group to me. I wasn't a huge fan of Reed Schaefer as a pick this past draft. Bourgault is more intriguing to me, and Dylan Holloway is even more intriguing to me.
I'll say this about Reed Schaefer as a draft honk through and through. I'll say this: Reed Schaefer. So just so folks know, the Seattle Thunderbirds played like an extra 3 weeks more than most other teams did. Most of the major junior hockey was all closed down. Playoffs were over for most teams by the time the Western League's playoffs were wrapping up. And so if you're a scout for any team, not just the Oilers, we'll pick on the Oilers, not just the Oilers. You're sent out. Your job is to watch hockey, and as long as there's as long as there's draft eligible players playing, you're going to be watching. You're going to be going to those games, and we see this quite often with draft eligible players for the Memorial Cup. Case in point, Greg Demas. We see this a lot in the Memorial Cup winning teams. Players who probably would have been second rounders, like Greg Demas is a good example of this. Greg Demas in his draft year played in the Memorial Cup, and he was good. He wasn't great. He was a good player on a very good team, and it made him look like a world beater. And so a player who probably should have gone to the second round went to the first round. So it's when Mike and I say I wouldn't have taken Reed Schaefer in the first round, I don't think I wouldn't have taken Reed Schaefer in the first round. Reed Schaefer in the second round, really good pick in the second round. It's just the playoff goggles, for lack of a better term, boost up players sometimes into higher than their draft position probably should have been. And so I like Reed Schaefer. I liked a lot of the Seattle players. Jordan Gustafson had a good playoffs. A lot of guys on Seattle had good playoffs. Lucas Ciona, the Flames pick, had a good playoffs. I don't think that would have maybe take Lucas Ciona around earlier, but then again, we had the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of pessimism. So, but I like Reed Schaefer. I agree with you. I really like Holloway as a prospect. I think he's got so much maturity to his game. He started to become, as the kids say, man-sized. The time he spent in college sort of filled him out a bit, so he's a little bit less boyish and a little bit more of a big boy. And, this is the kind of tournament where, you mentioned with Broberg, if it's a young kids tournament, there'll be some guys who are like 18, 19 years old playing, and they will look lanky and they will look like they could use an extra sandwich or an extra week at the gym. And if you're man sized, this is the type of environment where you can really assert yourself. So
funny you said that, because there's a player going for the Oilers that I'm interested in watching. It's Noah Philp. He's 24.
Luke Philp's brother.
Yeah, it's Noah Philp. He's
24. Sports icon.
But he played in a league that wasn't exactly the same level of competition as the rest of these guys. So I'm interested to see how he fits in, just how seamless that goes. And the other guy I want to watch is everyone's favorite. It's Dylan Holloway. It's his year. This is your time to break in, kid. Like, it's your time. Borgo should be next year. Like, everyone crapped all over Holland for years, but he's actually built a steady pipeline of decent players that should be able to make the roster over the next few years. And if the Oilers are a playoff team, they should be with those two guys up there. But Holloway's the guy. Holloway's, like, if someone on this team is going to take over a game, it's going to be Dylan Holloway. It should be Dylan Holloway. So
I don't know how I feel about the Oilers blue line group, though. I mean, I don't love their goaltending. When I look at they have Olivier Rodrigue, who spent most of last year in Wichita, and he's good in the queue. He's had sort of a weird experience as a pro so far. He hasn't grabbed hold of it, as they say, but I also think he hasn't been in a situation to grab hold of it, because he's sort of been their Nick Schneider, in that he's been their second or third guy in the A. And so to give him ice time, he goes down to Wichita, and the anyone who's watched the East Coast League, I apologize if you watch the East Coast League. Sometimes the hockey's good and sometimes it's not very good. And the part where it falls apart is the defensive play. And, when I watched a tape of Danil Chechelev, who the Flames had in Kansas City, he faced a lot of good chances. And that's, so it's hard. I don't want to judge Rodrigue too harshly, because he's been in the coast a lot and he's faced a lot of good chances based on that league, but his numbers aren't anything to write home about. He might be their best goalie.
He should be on Bakersfield this year with Mike Smith's rumored injury that might keep him out the whole year. That would be goaltender tandem of Campbell Skinner, which means there's a hole in Bakersfield, and that would be the hole for Rodrigue. It's there. Their goaltending depth's not crazy outside of that. So get him started and see what you got in him. But they're slow cooking him. They've got Stuart Skinner is actually really good. So I don't tell any of the Oilers fans up there I said that, but Stuart Skinner is an actually really good goaltender, and they have
real good WHL goalie, and they've done a nice job bringing him along developmentally. He probably should have been a full-time NHL last year. He was ready, but
he was on my Team North America piece I did when I was looking at all the goalies from Canada and US under him. He was a Final Four. He was the last guy left off, just because the other three guys they just had better track records in the actual NHL. He just didn't have enough sample size. So he's good.
You have Skinner over Wolfe?
Pardon? I didn't pick Wolfe because he was still just a little young. And Carter Hart was the starter, and there was some other ones there. Spencer.
I'd have Wolfe over Skinner.
We'll have to punish Shane later.
Well, neither of them. Skinner didn't make it. There's three guys ahead. Go back and look. I know it was Hart, and I know I had I already blanking already. That was a year ago. So
how times have changed. Gentlemen, let's go to Winnipeg, where the Jets have been a team that's drafted fairly well for the last few years. They have a decent amount of depth everywhere. They're bringing 3 first-rounders with them. Cole Perfetti, who is quite good. Chaz Lucius, who's signed and going pro this year, and he's quite good. And Brad Lambert, who might be like the hardest player to get a handle on in the entire 2022 draft class. Brad Lambert might be the Oliver Shillington of the 22 draft class, where I remember 2-3 years ago, when he was 16, like Brad Lambert's the kind of guy he was getting heavily scouted and talked about as a potential top 5 pick from when he was like 15, 16, when he was getting scouted in the WHL, when WHL teams were like, Brad Lambert, bring him on. he was being touted as a guy who had that kind of ceiling, and he might still have that ceiling. But he sort of bounced around. He went to Finland. He played at a bunch of different levels. He had some injury issues. He had some consistency issues. Basically, he's a young kid who's figuring out a lot of things on this at the same time, and things, development isn't always linear. And so Brad Lambert went from being a guy who is touted as a potential top 5 pick to being maybe in the first half of the first round to being barely a first rounder. Winnipeg got him, I think, at 30th overall. But I like Brad Lambert. He's granted, he's the type of guy where if you have multiple firsts and you take Brad Lambert late, you're probably feeling pretty happy, because as far as gambles go, in terms of his intangibles, in terms of his ceiling, he's a fascinating player. And playing against the types of players he's gonna be playing against on other teams in this situation, this is going to be such a fascinating environment to see Brad Lambert compete in.
Yeah, it's an interesting crop. I would say the Jets forward group in particular is a little bit thinner, I would say. I would say that, beyond those 3 guys, it's they don't have Nikita Chibrikov. Pardon me?
Jilkin. I like Jilkin in there.
Who?
Danny Jilkin. You're talking about their forward.
Oh, Danny Jilkin. Yeah. Well, Danny
Jilkin. They have Henri Nikkanen is coming too, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Henri Nikkanen's pretty old at this point, but
they have a few guys, but I agree with you, Mike. I think they have a first line ish group that you go, all right, let's see what these guys can do, and then as it goes down, it sort of thins out quite a bit.
Yeah, pretty much. The Jets, it's funny. The Jets have Connor Hellebuck, obviously, but they don't really have the guy who I would say is that goalie of the future, which is kind of funny as it is to say, because obviously that guy for so long was Connor Hellebuck. And I think their presumptive starter at the tournament will be Arvid Holm, who had a real rough year in Manitoba last year. 877 was the save percentage, I believe.
Not great.
Not exactly what you want to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jets draft another goalie here in the next couple of years.
Well, I think Hellebuck's still your goalie of the future is the thing.
Well,
they're just gonna ride him until he's in his 30s and barring him breaking down. But Cole Perfetti should be the best player in this tournament. Cole Perfetti should be the best player in this tournament. Like I really have high praise for the Flames guys they're bringing. Vancouver, not so much. We just went through the Oilers roster. I think Cole Perfetti should be the best player in this tournament. So,
Shane, out off the top of your head, how old will Connor Hellebuck be at the end of this coming season?
27?
30.
Oh, so yeah, I think he's younger than he is.
Yeah. Just figured you should know.
Yeah, he's
that's still another 5-6 years before
no, for sure. But
he's a goalie of the present more than the future.
You got to start planning.
But and might as well go to Vancouver next, because I know Mike has hashtag thoughts about Vancouver. I'll say this: so I've been leading off with the first rounders for all these teams. Vancouver's is easy because they don't have any, because they're not. It's a combination of trading your players and your players being in Europe. So I think Jonathan Leterimaki was their most recent first rounder. I hope I got his name right, because he's a very good player. He's playing in Sweden right now, so he's not coming because he's busy doing pro hockey stuff. So in the interim, the highest drafted player that the Canucks have coming is Danila Klimovich, who was in Abbotsford last year. He's a second rounder from a couple years ago. He's pretty decent. He's fine. And then it thins out a bit after Klimovich, who's fine. So it's going to be the host team arguably has the thinnest group going. I don't know what to make of them.
Yeah, the Vancouver Canucks have been one of the most mismanaged teams in the National Hockey League over the last decade. That's not really a secret at this point. Obviously, having made the playoffs just twice in the last 9 seasons, I believe, which is honestly a fact that surprises me when I hear it, because it feels like they've made it more than that. But no, it's just been twice. And the second time they made it, they would not have made it had that been not for the expanded playoff format. The Canucks group of prospects here is not really befitting of a team that has missed the playoffs as much as they have. It's really, really poor, and no disrespect intended to any of the players going, because they honestly would be fine middle of the lineup players on any of the other teams going to this tournament. But when you are going up against teams that have a Dylan Holloway or a Cole Perfetti or a Jacob Pelletier, And the best prospect you're bringing, the most closest to the NHL prospect you're bringing is Jet Wu, or Arshdeep Bains, or Danila Klimovich. It just doesn't stack up. And the Canucks are, I don't even know if they know what they're trying to be. I like the JT Miller contract in terms of its value, but I don't like it for that team. And they seem to be intent upon winning when I don't think their roster is set up for it, and their prospect pool will not be competent, or will not be sufficient to complement them going forward.
All due respect to our friends in Vancouver, I'll say this. Generally speaking, you say, screw it, let's go for it, when you've had a few years of sort of upward momentum. I mean, you can say what you will about the wisdom of Flames ownership, for example, saying, let's go for it, boys. But the Flames won the division last year.
Yeah.
The Flames, had a pretty good first round, and then they simply, the wheels fell off in the second round for any number of reasons, which we've gotten into already. But if you want to squint and go, with this core, you swap out these three guys for these three guys to keep going, you could, you don't really need to, squint too much to make it make sense. Vancouver's situation is a little bit more challenging in that you need to sort of project hopes and dreams a bit more upon that group than they have experienced.
Like, why would you leave Mac Rathbone off your roster? Like, maybe you're like, oh, he's too much of a veteran. He's 23. Like we saw, like some of those other guys are going for the other teams to get him kickstarted. You just got Philip Johansson, former first-round pick of the Wild. He's not going. Like, what are you doing?
He's playing in Sweden.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Oh, but I was like, they're not even. Like they didn't send anybody, and like
I know
it's just like you're not giving your home fans anything. You're not getting your home, like it's supposed to be everyone's coming and the attraction is every other team.
What I will say is this: the Calgary Flames are historically one of the least successful teams in the National Hockey League in terms of advancing in the playoffs. Over the last decade, they have advanced 3 times in the playoffs. The Arizona Coyotes have advanced 3 times over the last decade. The Vancouver Canucks.
Are you counting the bubble as advancing?
I'm counting everything. Yes.
Okay.
The Arizona
So
Coyotes
they won 3 series.
Yes, that's right. The Coyotes have advanced 3 times. The Flames have advanced 3 times. The Canucks have advanced twice. And so that just goes to show the track record under Jim Benning. And I don't see the commitment to a different direction thus far under Patrick Allvin.
I see. I mean, they're kind of tied up still. Like they're tied up, but
you got to. I'll say this: when the Flames changed leadership and they brought in Jay Feaster, the phrase that Brian Burke used was, "Jay did a good job shoveling out the barn," because there was stuff in the barn to be shoveled out before Brad Treliving got hired. So. It is what it is. Gentlemen, before we might as well dive into the meat of the Flames roster. Before we dive in, let's talk about the folks who aren't going briefly. Most of these are just European players, college players, and players who are going to college soon. Amongst them, I'll just run through the list very quickly. Arseniy Sergayev, goaltender. He's at school at UConn. He's not going. Defenseman Jake Boltman is not going. He's at school at Notre Dame. Go Irish. Matt Coronado is at Harvard. Demetrius Komantzis is at the favorite school of Mike Gould, Arizona State, as a 5th-year senior. Topi Roni is with Tappara in Finland. He's playing pro already. Josh Nodler just transferred from Michigan State to UMass in Amherst. He's about to start his senior year. Cade Lidler, late round pick of the Flames this past year. He is just about to start his season with the BCHL's Wenatchee Wild in Washington State. He's committed to Minnesota State Mankato, I believe. And I haven't been told this definitively by anyone, but this is just my theory. He's barely 18. He's still at NCAA eligibility, and he's about to start his season in the BCHL. There's really no reason to disrupt the start of his season, to bring him to an NHL camp where he'll be there for a few days and they'll turn around and say, okay, see you later, Cade. So I think that it's a combination of getting him started on a good season and also maintaining his NCAA eligibility. And William Stromgren is just started a season with Rogel in the SHL. He got a hat trick in his first U20 game, and then he got rewarded with some Champions League games. So That's kind of cool. So those are the guys who aren't going. The guys who are going, and we'll go position by position very briefly. And I have too many things open on my desktop, like I tend to. So in net, the Flames are bringing 3 guys. They're bringing ECHL backup Brad Arvinatis, who's going to be probably the backup in Rapid City this year. He's a second-year pro. He played 3 years of Division III in the NCAA. Previous to that, he played 2 years of Division I and barely got to play. He was the 3rd goalie for UMass, and they won a national championship when he was there, but he barely played. And so if you want to play pro hockey, playing is helpful. And so he made the decision to transfer to a Div 3 school, and he played awesome in Div 3. And so now he's at an NHL camp where he probably wouldn't have gotten this opportunity had he not gone down to Div 3. So bet on yourself, kids, like Brad Arvinatis. The other goalie there is the likely ECHL starter, Daniil Chechelev, who's on another AHL deal. He's Flames property. Because of the weirdness of the Russian rights, he basically is Flames property forever. But they're going to sign him eventually because they like him. But Chechelev will be starting probably for Rapid City. So Arvinatis and Chechelev get to become buddies early. I hope a Russian guy and a guy from New England, I hope they start a buddy comedy web series somehow, because that's just good fun. Rapid City, your social people, get on that. We want to see wacky misadventures of the mismatched goalies. And the other goalie, Dustin Wolf, you might have heard of him. He won the AHL Goaltender of the Year award last year. He's 21. He's played 1 year of pro. That 1 year of pro was awesome. So I think the idea is the Flames have a lot of goalies. I think they're playing 8 preseason games, unless I'm mistaken, 8 or 9. Of those, you're probably going to give Markstrom a bunch. You're probably going to give Vladar a bunch because you need Vladar ready in case you need to use him right away, especially in a very busy October. So I think the thought process is, there's 3 games. You're probably going to see Wolfe in a couple of them to get him going, because there's probably not going to be a lot of preseason time to really try things out. So it makes sense. I don't know. It was either bring these 3 guys who are in your pro system or scrounge for tryout guys that aren't in your system. And given the limited developmental reps they have to use, I kind of see the logic of using their goaltenders this way, right?
Yeah, Dustin Wolf would have been our unanimous number 1 prospect if some idiot didn't rank him 3rd. But he was just fantastic to watch last season, and I would be on the track of playing him against Edmonton and Winnipeg probably in this tournament, and probably give Chechelev and Arvinatis the split probably against Vancouver potentially. Wolf is just really, really good. Like, I just can't really say that enough. His lateral movement is off the charts. He plays really tall in his crease.
Are you gonna pull a Feaster and declare him the best goalie outside of the NHL?
No, that's
he's definitely in the conversation. He's in the top 3, I would say. He's right up there. I would have a hard time coming up with 3 better ones. So yeah, he's astounding. And if you want to watch some Penticton games, he's the reason why. If he's starting, you should watch.
I know 2 things about goalies: big saves and bad goals, and that's why none of them will ever rank number 1 on my list. So Dustin Wolf's unreal. He's probably too good for this tournament, to be honest with you. But you got to start, and it never hurts. Like, who doesn't want to go play hockey games where you're going to be one of the best players on the ice, and you know it?
Yeah, honestly, that's the probable message from the Flames goaltending department is, kid, go dominate.
Yeah.
And he's the way he's wired, he wants to dominate. So it's going to be, he might be, like Mike said, I think he's one of the main reasons to watch this tournament from a Flames perspective, because I know a lot of people didn't watch a lot of AHL hockey last year. There's any number of reasons why folks didn't watch a lot of AHL hockey. You'll have the opportunity to watch more of it this year. And one of the main reasons to watch AHL hockey in person as much as you can this year is to see Dustin Wolf do Dustin Wolf things. And you get a preview in Penticton.
Shane said Cole Perfetti's the best prospect in the tournament. I'm going to say, based on pure ceiling potential, Dustin Wolf has a higher ceiling than Cole Perfetti, but it's darn close.
I'm talking about later. I'm talking about right now.
That's fine. You know what? Right now, I mean, hey, you know what? They both played in the AHL.
You can place that argument. That's fair.
Both played in the AHL last year, and you could make a very good argument last year that Dustin Wolf was one of the 5 very best players in that league.
Oh, I'm not trying to trounce
there
him.
you
I'm
go.
not saying he's trash.
Oh, I know.
I just
Yeah, but
again, I never pick a goalie. Never.
and Dustin Wolf didn't get any regular season shutouts. So how good can he be?
And then he got 3 in the playoffs.
He was saving them. He was
I
saving them
know.
for a special
I know.
occasion. Much like the good China, he was saving them for the playoffs.
Folks, you got to understand that with Dustin Wolf, he just got better. Like, he kept getting better. He had what, a 926 in the regular season. I think he started out the playoffs with a 929. Last 3 games when they were facing the Chicago Wolves and they were facing elimination, he had a 936. He just
Facing
kept getting
elimination
so much
against
better.
the team that eventually won the championship.
Yeah, exactly. So like, he was the reason they took him to 6.
If you go all the way back to the 2 junior seasons, his junior seasons, if they weren't COVID shortened, he would have broke all of the WHL.
Oh yeah,
no question.
easily.
He would be the record holder in every single category in the dub if they weren't.
He amongst junior hockey people, he is still thought about, even with the pandemic of it all. He's considered one of the 3 or 4 best Western League goalies of all time. Like him, Kelly Gard. There's a handful of other names in the conversation, but
I always compare him to modern day comparison to UC Saros, because you don't get that good at that size at that position without having the absolute compete level of a champion. So it's and he's gone up since he got drafted. He grew a bit more than the draft day when everyone was like, oh, he's so short. Like,
and he started wearing big shoes.
Yeah, but yeah, no, like UC Saros is my NHL comparable, and he could dwarf that. Like his ceiling is higher than that. So
I talk regularly with folks in the Flames and, with their marketing department. And I said to them this year, because they don't usually, they sell Flames jerseys with player names on the back. They don't do that for the Hitmen. And I wouldn't expect them to do it for the Wranglers. But I would say, if you made up a batch of 15 Dustin Wolf jerseys and just tried to sell them, I don't think they'd last the whole game.
Yeah, they're gonna do some brisk business on AHL merch this year, I think.
Yeah, you could sell some Pelche stuff. Like there's a lot of.
Well, if he's down there, but yeah, for sure. Wolf is a guarantee to be down there. So
for now, let's move to the blue line. The blue line group includes a lot of players that you might not have heard of, because some of these guys only really junior hockey hardcores have heard of. So the 9 guys going for the Flames are Yan Kuznetsov, Christopher Sedoff, Simon Levine, Jeremy Poirier, Cameron Wynot, Cole Jordan, Rhett Reinhardt, Jake Lee, and the lone AHLer from last year, although Kuznetsov had a little bit of time there, Ivan Solovyov. So Ilya Solovyov, sorry, Ilya. So the tryout kids are Christopher Sedoff, who's Finnish, an overager heading back to the Western League's Red Deer Rebels. He's had a really interesting draft progression last few years. So he came over, played a year as an import. Then the pandemic happened, so he was loaned back from the Rebels to Finland, played on 3 different teams, especially I think he played 26 games in the highest level of Finnish hockey, the Liga. He played, he was a second, third pairing defenseman as a teenager in a very good league. And then he came back to the Western League last year as a 19-year-old and had 61 points, 65 games. He's very good offensively. Defensively, he's fine. He probably wants to be more than fine. His coaching staff probably wishes he was more than fine, but he's not a liability. But he's a really good puck mover. He's got size. He plays with pace. He anticipates well. The reason he wasn't drafted is, I think, basically, they didn't have enough of a sample size of him at one particular level to really say he went from A to B. Therefore, here's his trajectory. But he's the kind of guy where I think there's so much potential there that of all the non-Flames properties playing for the Flames in this event, he might be the guy to keep your eye on the most. The other guys who are tryouts, Simon Levine has an AHL contract, Rhett Reinhardt has an AHL contract, and Jake Lee is 21. He previously played in the Western League with Seattle and Kelowna. He played in the WHL championship. He didn't play very much, but he was on a WHL championship team in his 16-year-old season. And then he's just played out his eligibility. He's another guy kind of like Sedoff, where he's got a lot of upward potential, potentially offensively. His defensive game, there's, again, been sort of some questions about, but he fits the mold of what the Flames want from their back end in terms of, puck mover, mobility, those kind of things. Essentially, I think they see a lot of attributes that they like in the defenseman the Flames like, say, Hannafin or Shillington or Anderson, the guys who can, get the puck in their own zone and then just move it in the right direction. But I don't think him or Sedoff would be shutdown guys. But so, gentlemen, what do you think of the defensive group? There's obviously no first rounders. The guys they have, the marquee players, such as they are the third pairing AHL defenseman from last season, and a couple of guys who are on a very good second pairing on the Memorial Cup champions in Kuznetsov and Poirier. And beyond that, it's sort of some guys with, probably didn't have great seasons last year and think they can bounce back. And we'll see what happens. I mean, we'll see what happens with this group.
Shane, I think you're muted.
Oh, So Cold. Oh, sorry, my mother tried to call me mid podcast, so she got the hard decline. So, Cole Jordan had fantastic transition stats when they drafted him. Mitch Brown tracks all that stuff, and I am a loyal subscriber of years now, and so I'm interested to watch him move the puck. But Kuznetsov to me is the big draw. He's the highest drafted guy they have. He's Poirier's got the offense, but Kuznetsov's I want to see him be a shutdown guy that doesn't let anyone by him. That's what I want to see, especially when they play Vancouver. I don't want to see anyone get by.
Kuznetsov, for all the talk of him being a good shutdown guy, and he is. That was his role in UConn. That's kind of why the Flames wanted to get him. He was quite good offensively in the Memorial Cup tournament, and I think the reason why he got sent to St. John last year, also because it's tough to be a teenager in the AHL. To be blunt, they didn't have a consistent enough spot in the blue line group for him and Solovyov. So they basically had to choose, and they tried to choose the way that maximized ice time for both guys. But for Kuznetsov, I mean, they put him in St. John because they wanted him to play with Poirier and get some of the offensive swagger that Poirier has. And I think they wanted Poirier to get some of that shutdown swagger that Kuznetsov has. And I think this is going to be the kind of event where you see if that idea was successful, or at least at a very small level.
I want to see them separate too. I don't want to just same old all the time. Poirier can play the right side, so he'll be over there quite a bit.
Because they only have one right shot defense.
Just Reinhardt. So that shoots right. So they're going to need some off guys playing on their offside. So I don't know. It's not like there's not really a big defenseman on any of the teams other than the Oilers taking Broberg. The rest of it is just a bunch of, the Flames probably have one of the better D-cores that's going. And that's just a testament to the fact that, they take good guys later in the draft, like guys with decent potential or roles or specific skills that they want to round out. So I don't know. I think the Flames have the best D-core going, but I also am biased. So
yeah, I have reasonably high expectations for Jeremy Poirier. I think he has an extremely high ceiling. I was a big fan of that pick when they made it. I can't make heads or tails of Jan Kuznetsov. I just have no idea what that guy projects to be in the NHL. I just don't know. He's an unusual player. He's not he's a big shutdown guy, but he's also not massive. He's 6'4", obviously, he's huge, but it's not like he's Maverick Lemonou, who's 6'7". It's not like he's an absolute pillar out there. He's 6'4", and Alex Chason is 6'4". It's just he's big, but he's not so big that it overcomes or it can make up for other aspects of his game. So I don't know. He's not as offensive as you might like to see for a guy who played in the queue at whatever he's 19. But small sample that, and like you said, Pike, in the Memorial Cup, we saw that, and obviously what we've seen from him with Stockton has been such a small sample as well, to the point where I think we can reserve judgment on that until we see him next year with the Wranglers, likely in a top 4 role.
Yeah, the curious thing you mentioned, Shane, you mentioned Cole Jordan, so. Yeah. Both Jordan and Cam Wynot were drafted, and I think the thought process was these are guys with some potential. Let's see how they develop. Both of them kind of had seasons that sucked last year, and not for their own reasons. Jordan had an injury that he basically dealt with for half the season, and then he's playing on a very good team in Moose Jaw. And if you're playing a good teams are deep. And if you're an 18-year-old playing on a deep team and you get hurt, odds are you're not going to get your spot back right away. And he didn't get his spot back right away. And he basically had to play his way back into a larger role. And there's some graduations this year, and knock on wood, he stays healthy. Hopefully that means that Jordan has a bigger role, because a lot of scouts in the Western League are like, there's something there. Can he get it? And that's the thing with Wynot too. Wynot was sick and he was hurt, and he had a lot of challenges last year too. And I think between those two guys, if one of them can bounce back and get anywhere close to the potential the Flames thought they had in them, great, found money. If both of them do, great. But I don't think these guys have to have the worst frigging luck possible for both of them to have bad years again, because there's so many weird things conspiring against them. So let's hope they can bounce back. Let's move on to the forward group before I run out of steam and lose my voice. The forward group includes a bunch of guys. They are Adam Clapka, Connor Zary, Jacob Pelche, Jack Beck, Cole Huckins, Lucas Folk, Evan Boucher, Rory Cairns, Walker Duehr, Lucas Siona, Ilya Nikolaev, Emilio Peterson, Cole Schwint, Parker Bell, and Scott Walker's kid, Cooper Walker, who has two first names, because why not? The tryouts in this group include Evan Boucher, who played with Cameron Wynot in Halifax. He's an overager. He's a big dude. He's a center. They don't have a lot of centers. They like big dudes. He had good numbers last year, so why not bring him in? They also brought in Cooper Walker, who's from Guelph. He plays in the OHL. His daddy's playing in the NHL, and I believe he's coaching now. I forget where. Scott Walker's bouncing around somewhere, but he's always involved. Cooper Walker
was in Vancouver last year.
Yeah, I think he was in a developmental role, or he's somewhere in the Canucks organization right now, I think.
Not anymore, but he left, but he was an assistant coach last year.
Okay. So new faces for the Flames. Adam Clapka is Czech and gigantic. He's listed as 6'7" or 6'8", depending on where you look at it, and between 220 and 230 pounds, depending on if he's eaten yet. He's just a big dude, and one of two right shot forwards the Flames have going. The other one being Walker Duehr, who played NHL games last year. Also going, this is a group I'm kind of excited about. Connor Zary, former first-round pick. Jacob Pelche, AHL all-rookie team, and very good last year. Basically, he took 10 days to figure out the AHL. That was very good from right away. Jack Beck, who, when he wasn't dealing with any number of injuries, a knee injury, a liver contusion, a couple other things, was just a goal machine when he was playing. Rory Cairns, who bounced back from barely playing in his draft plus 1 year to being the second leading scorer in the entire OHL in his draft plus 2. Not bad. Lucas Siona went to a WHL final. Ilya Nikolaev jumped from any number of weird Russian secondary, tertiary leagues into the USHL as an overager. And as you would hope a physically mature 20-year-old who's played pro would do, he beat the crap out of the USHL. He was very, very good on a very, very good team. He was one of the better players on one of all of North American junior hockey's best teams. Underachieved in the playoffs, but that happens to a lot of good teams. Cole Schwint, the Flames got him from Florida in the Tkachuk trade. He's pretty good. He played NHL games last year. Emilio Peterson, heading into his third year of his entry level, has had an interesting couple of years, has been pretty good, has been less good, has been up the lineup, has been down the lineup, finished the season playing fairly well for a very good AHL team. There's a lot of interesting projects and interesting players and names to keep track of this forward group. And granted, we're biased because we talk about the Flames and follow their prospects fairly intricately, but this might be a buffet where at the end of the first few days, we're like, there's too much stuff to write about, guys, because there's a lot of storylines that we could follow in this. How are any number of these young guys going to transition to full-time pro? How are any number of these guys going to transition to North America? How are any number of these guys going to transition to the Flames and their systems? I don't know, man. This is okay. Mike, who are the 2 or 3 guys you're going to be circling and really looking at their shifts and trying to figure out?
Yeah, I really want to get a good look at Cole Schwint. I got a lot of people in the comment sections of some of my articles saying that Cole Schwint could push for the Flames' third line right wing spot this year. I would be extraordinarily surprised if that was the case. He played the 3 NHL games last year, and I think he earned those NHL games.
He played NHL games, but let's put a caveat here, folks. He played AHL games at the point where everyone and their dog in Florida had COVID. And granted, you needed to have somebody to play. And in that situation, you choose guys you like and you trust. And Schwint was the guy that they chose for that gig. But, he didn't beat out a guy for a roster spot. He beat out guys for call-ups. But it's still an accomplishment.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm curious to see what exactly the Flames have in Cole Schwint. I think some of the people, I do think there are people who need to pump the brakes a little bit on Cole Schwint. I think he's a very interesting prospect. I wouldn't say, though, at this point, he's even close to surpassing a guy like Adam Ruzicka, or even a guy like Jacob Pelletier, or even a guy like Matthew Phillips. He'll be on the second line, I think, with the Wranglers at most. That's a big thing that I want to see, because I imagine they'll put Cole Schwint at center with the Wranglers, but they've got a lot of competition at center. A lot of competition. They're going to have Connor Zary, who's really going to be pushing for minutes. They've got Ilya Nikolaev, who is a massive wild card. He's Jan Kuznetsov at forward for me. I have no idea what to expect from him either. And Rory Kerins, who was one of the best players in the OHL, second in scoring last year. And so Cole Schwint, I mean, there's a good chance he maybe even ends up on the wing, on the right side of one of those other three centers. And I think penciling him in for 3 RW minutes this year is very lofty. But I am also very interested in the tools that he brings, because I think they do scream Daryl Sutter to me in some respects, and I think he's very intriguing.
I think we always talk about, like, fans, we love you. People on Twitter, we love you. We mean this with nothing but love. A lot of folks ask us about training camp line combos and Penticton line combos and this other thing. And a lot of times they don't mean anything, because it's just, here's 3 guys we thought we'd want to see together. Like, I've talked to the coaches, a lot of times it's just like, we were curious, But this is the kind of event based on, it's the AHL coaching staff running the bench, and it's the AHL coaching staff getting their first real reps with a lot of guys that'll be in the AHL this year. And so if you're Stockton, or if you're the Wranglers and you're Mitch Love and you're his coaching staff, and you want to get some reps with these guys, I'm really curious who plays center in these games, who plays with who's used in different situations. I mean, the combination themselves aren't really that significant, but I think the roles that guys are tried out in, I think, will be kind of interesting, especially, for guys who are a bit more mature, because I mean, a lot of these guys, when I did the roster preview on the site when they announced everything, there's not a lot of old guys in this team. I think Adam Clapka is 24, turning 25. I think. No, he's 22. He's
22 on here. Dewar's 20.
Dewar's about to turn 25.
Yeah,
but everyone else for the Flames is like 22 and under. And so there's a lot of young guys here, and a lot of guys who are maybe playing their first year pro, maybe playing their second. So there's a lot of upward mobility in a lot of these players. And I think seeing particularly who the centers are might be the main significant takeaway, because maybe it'll give us a clue as to who plays where in with the Wranglers this year. Shane, do you don't like any of these players, do you? Bit disappointing group in your eyes, right?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely thrilled to watch Rory Kerins. Like I am absolutely, like, Pelletier should be the best player on the team. Like, he should be, naturally so. I really think Zary will show some people that, the start of last year and everyone already kind of like writing off his potential was wrong. He's still got it. He's still got the smarts. I think he'll show, but I want to see Rory Kerins. I want to see, he missed a whole year of development. It fascinates me how he's going to come in and compete with these guys that already have a year and see if he can show any of them up, because that to me would really hype me up for his potential ceiling. I want to see more AHL. I'm excited that I'm planning to watch him live, hopefully, if he's playing for the Wranglers, which he should be. And the other guy is Jack Beck. Like you said, he's a goal machine on the wing. He's definitely going to go back to junior this year, but I want to see how he holds up against these guys. So, like, he's going to have Jack Beck's going to have someone decent up the middle fishing the puck, whether it's Zary, Schwint, Nikolaev, Kerins, even maybe Huckins, like, if they're going to put him at center, like fourth line center or something. But Jack Beck's going to have
I think you hit on something that I just want to mention. So we talked about the the Phil Broberg of it all against Edmonton. And I mean, he's one guy, but he's expected. I think the expectation amongst Oilers fans and probably both the Oilers developmental group is that Phil Broberg should dominate wherever game he's in because he's mature, he's big, he's beefy, he's got that maturity in his game. The big thing, the storyline of Flames prospects, especially at forward over the last however many years, you could date back to Johnny Gaudreau and probably significantly before that too. The Flames skill prospects aren't big and their big prospects aren't skilled. I am very curious how Rory Cairns does against Broberg, how Jack Beck does against Broberg. Like all these small-ish, the Flames don't have anybody that's quite, let's say, Matthew Phillips-ish in terms of physical stature in this group, but they have a lot of guys who are around 6 foot and a little bit shorter than 6 foot, and guys who are not quite as physically developed as some of their counterparts who are older. Jack Beck's a good example of that, or even Rory Cairns, who's only, he's just barely 20. I'm really curious how in the span of a short tournament, how the Flames young guys can transition and enter the zone and hold on to the puck and really make things happen, because in the Flames system, the difference between the guys who make it and the guys that don't is their ability to get the puck, move the puck, and keep the puck. And can you do that when someone who's 220, 215, 2 whatever is hurtling at you and ready to smush you against the boards? We'll see. But I mean, the Flames prospects historically who have had success at the NHL level, Mangiapane, Dubé, several others, have gone to this type of event against some beefy defensemen on other teams and been able to do their thing. And can Rory Cairns, for example, do his thing in this kind of environment? I don't know.
I'm excited to see it. That's all I can say. It's going to be a really interesting opportunity to watch some of these guys playing together, which is something that we haven't really gotten for quite a while.
Do you think are they gonna go full retro for sweaters?
Yeah. What do you mean full retro? They'll be wearing the retro. Yeah, the red.
We haven't seen that. That's kind of one of the more fun things. Like we haven't seen a lot of these prospects in the retros.
Yeah.
Yet.
Well, what else?
While we were recording, they're going to announce the reverse retros on October 20th.
That's right. I was about to bring that up.
Does that mean the supply chain challenges have been overcome?
I don't know if the supply chain challenges with the reverse retros are in the same sort of train of distribution as the Flames alternates and the Wranglers jerseys. The Wranglers are entirely unrelated because they're CCM. And then the alternates, I don't really know. I think the reverse retros, though, have been in the works for longer. I just think that's been a thing that has been underway, whereas the alternates, the reverse retros are, I think, a 2-year endeavor. The alternates are, I think, maybe closer to a year and a half.
And to folks who are looking forward to being broke this year, there'll be 2 new jerseys to buy. Granted, one of them, the third jersey, well, if you bought a reverse retro last year, I don't think it's unfair to suggest that it'll be really similar to a jersey you already own.
Pretty darn similar.
I have to replace mine. I lost it in the fire.
Then they just did this for you, Shane. They heard about your circumstances and were like, we're gonna bring them back in almost completely unchanged form outside of some minor issues.
I because it was the only jersey I have that would have been relevant. It was an Anderson, and my Kachuk and Gaudreau went out of style pretty quick here. So I'm gonna get an Anderson or a Mangiapane this time. So.
Most likely 2 black uniforms for the Flames next year, which is going to be absolutely wild. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and if you go to the Aesthetics Twitter accounts and the Aesthetics website, they have some mock-ups of what they've been told the Flames reverse retro, especially the reverse retro of this year. If that's anything close to reality, and I'm told it's very close to reality, it's going to be really cool.
I'm so excited. It's going to be so sweet.
I'm a big fan I'm a fan of teams. I find it really fascinating that it's the team that's trying to make a push for excellence in the 2020s. And how do they do it? They do it in jerseys from the 1980s and the 1990s, which is just hilarious to me.
Now, Pike, something that you might find interesting while we've been recording, a couple of players with ties to Calgary have signed PTOs around the league. Alex Chason has wound up in Arizona, the former Calgary Flame. And Victor Rask former Calgary Hitman forward from about 10 years ago, has wound up signing with James Neal and Johnny Gaudreau in Columbus.
Ooh, the Johnny Gaudreau Columbus Blue Jackets.
That's right.
Johnny Ohio, baby.
There you go.
Does anyone else find it kind of neat that that's the U.S. game, like one of the 4 U.S. national games that have been announced for the Flames, is Johnny Hockey's return to Calgary? Where
he's gonna get booed.
He's gonna get the Adam Fox treatment.
I don't know you guys. I don't know if you guys are football guys, but the college football scene crowd, there's people with signs that are like, "We got Johnny Hockey." Like the wave of
cool.
Johnny Gaudreau going to Columbus.
Well, it's funny. It's funny that Johnny Gaudreau ended up going to Johnny Manziel, the state of Johnny Manziel's old NFL team.
Yeah, Johnny Football. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that because he used to play for Cleveland? Like that is so funny. But no, I'm not going to be. I will not be booing Johnny Gaudreau when he comes back. I don't think there's anything to boo him for. But at the same time, I can understand why fans might be a little bit disappointed. And I'm not going to tell anybody how to cheer for their team, but it's just not something that I'm going to be doing. Adam, there's a difference though. I think there is a difference with Johnny and Adam Fox. Adam Fox, I wasn't booing at the start of that game, but it was a perfect heel moment when he scored the goal. He put up the hand and said, I hear you. And then it was immediately disallowed. That's just funny.
That was funny.
And from that point on, I can totally understand leaning into the villain aspect of it. It's sort of a wrestling thing. I'm not even a wrestling guy, but that's something that seems like it's straight out of.
We'll ask Audie, because Audie was a primetime Klein's a big wrestler, so and Audie works with him on over. So,
but with Johnny, I don't really see the same.
I'm sorry. Which one of us here has been a voter for the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame?
You.
Yeah. I think he's a good wrestling fan.
What's your take on that, Pike?
I don't know. I like. I mean, sports is supposed to be fun. Getting to know Johnny a little bit over the years, I feel he was in a tough situation. I feel bad for him a little bit. Did he handle it well? I won't say that. I think his counterpart Matthew Tkachuk handled that situation a bit more delicately than Johnny Gaudreau did. I will also say that I think Matthew Tkachuk was always probably going to do that, because I think Matthew Tkachuk made a business decision, whereas I think Johnny Gaudreau made a personal decision. And I think when you look through things through a business lens, it's really easy to make cold, hard, analytical decisions of, oh, this is the play that has the best ROI for my time, for my brand, for my whatever. And I don't think Johnny Gaudreau sees the world in that lens. I think because of that, it was a much tougher decision for him to make. So
in the real world, people change jobs for worse reasons than those two guys did.
Exactly.
You gotta remember, this is a job to them, folks. And you are allowed to leave your job, place of employment, to go somewhere else whenever you feel like it.
I'll say this. If a single person boos Sean Monahan when Montreal comes to town, I'll be so disappointed. So disappointed.
Not at all. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. I'll be upset at that.
I'll fight you on the concourse.
Yeah. I mean, with Johnny, I think if I was in that situation, I probably would have been a wreck. It would have been just an absolute mess. And yeah, but with Sean Monahan, I mean, my God, how can you not like that guy and hope for him to succeed in Montreal?
Good people.
Yeah, I hope he gets paid next offseason. I hope he bounces back, gets some more money.
We'll see. So, gentlemen, yeah, the fun gets going. This is our last quiet week until June, May. I don't know, until these guys get done.
Don't tell Mo. She'll be upset with me.
She's always upset with you. That's why we love her. I think that'll do it for this edition. Folks, remember, Penticton gets started on Friday night. The first game is at 8:30 Mountain Time. The Flames website will be streaming them, so go to the website. If it doesn't work, maybe it's geolocked. I don't know how things work. All I'm telling you is they're streaming it. Brendan Parker, friend of this program, will be hosting the broadcast, so they're gonna do it up. So hopefully it's a fun tournament. It's the return of September hockey. Bear in mind, don't expect it to be like sweet deeks and high level dangles right away. It's September. These guys haven't been playing that much since like some of them since June, some of them since May. So give them the benefit of the doubt. They're kids. They're trying to get the rust off. So when main camp starts, then you can get mean about things a little bit. But in the interim, have fun. As always, FlamesNation Radio has been brought to you by DoorDash and our wonderful friends at Eau Claire Distillery, the makers of Rupert's Whiskey, the official whiskey of the Calgary Flames. We'll be back in a week, and in a week we'll be breaking down the weekend that was at the Penticton Young Stars Classic, and we'll also be looking ahead to main camp, because in a week we'll be on the eve of main camp beginning, and the Calgary Flames starting to cut down from probably 60 some guys to their final 22 or 23 as they try to return to the playoffs and potentially have another banner hanging from the Saddle Dome. Oh yeah, based from our friend Rick on Twitter, who's an usher at the Saddle Dome, the tour guide. You know, it's kind of cool. The Flames have already hung the 21-22 division championship banner, and I am told they're planning to do something at the home opener to say, hey, look, we won the division. I don't know if it's going to be extensive or not, but it's not going to be 18 or 19 where they just ignored it completely and pretended it didn't happen. And then when they put it on the broadcast, they just showed, awkward looking B-roll of the bench and went, oh yeah, that. No, they're gonna have fun with it. So
I was hoping they'd ignore it again, to be honest.
No. They won a round. They were good until Edmonton, so they're allowed to be a little bit happy about winning the division. So we'll leave that. That'll be our positive moment of zen for the following 7 days before we return. So we'll see you guys in a week. Mike wants to jump in where he's scratching his ear.
Before we sign out, one prediction for Penticton. Ilya Nikolaev scores 5 goals in 3 games. That's it.
My prediction, Dustin Wolf shutout.
My prediction, Blue Jays win.
Oh, God. All right.
That's been FlamesNation Radio. I'll see you guys in a week. Take care.